Hi mums, how are you today? My name's Dani and I'm the co-founder of Safe Space, a mental health initiative on a mission to remove some of the barriers that are preventing people from being mentally well. I'm joined today by the wonderful Tess Pereira. Hi Tess, how are you?
Hi, I'm great today. Thank you, Dani.
Who's one of the amazing professionals that works within our network. Tess is a therapist and a coach, and she's someone that helps us with all of the people that we work with, but motherhood is definitely a topic that is close to my heart. So I am the mum of a 3-year-old and a 5-year-old, and Tess has a 10 and a 12-year-old. Is that right, Tess?
That's right, yeah, a girl and a boy.
So, I've got a girl and a boy too. So between us, we should have this motherhood thing sorted, right? But the reason I think why mental health and motherhood is so important to me is when I had Harvey 5 years ago, I really struggled, and I put it down to tiredness, overwhelm, not really knowing what I was doing, and just couldn't really find the support that I needed. I did have some sort of like new mum friends that I hung around with, but I was just so overwhelmed in the beginning. I really didn't know kind of what was happening. So I think like looking back, and actually probably when Harvey was around 6 months, understanding what I was going through was postnatal depression. It all kind of made sense. I had to go back to work when he was only a few months old. Rather than having these as sort of excuses as to why I was feeling terrible, it all started to really kind of come together. I wish I'd have known more at that time, and really that's something that as Safe Space we're trying to do, is help people understand where resources are for these things, but just through getting people to share their story as well, so we can relate. I think a lot of motherhood, we see what's on social media, we what we're supposed to be doing, and it's unattainable sometimes. I don't know, Tess, how was motherhood for you?
Oh, it was very hard. Everybody has an assumption that motherhood is going to be wonderful. And of course, most of it is, but it's the in-between bit that, I found difficult. The pregnancy was tiring. My body wasn't used to it. It was clearly something very new for me, and for all mothers, of course. The delivery, Sophia came out in 2 pushes, and it's totally unexpected. And from delivery to breastfeeding, that was very painful because it didn't look like what it was in the books or the magazines at that time. And nobody tells you about the pain of post-delivery and suckling child and so on and so forth. And also, the changes in my mental health. I didn't recognize that I was feeling overwhelmed, because I thought this was what normal was meant to be, because nobody really spoke about it. I didn't have a frame of reference until I met other mums and we started speaking, and we discovered that actually it was on day 3 onwards that our mental health kind of, from the high, we kind of go low, and sometimes if that low continues, that's when we need to go and seek help from a GP, who may diagnose us with postnatal depression and so on and so forth. So the transition from being a newly married woman to a mother was difficult. I wouldn't change it for the world, but I just wish I had a bit more knowledge at that time of what to expect. Because it's very glossy still, isn't it? We have these Insta mums who look amazing and with their makeup and so on and so forth post-birth. But the reality, I didn't look like anything like that. It was hair over there and a sweaty face and all sorts. And all that horrible stuff. But I had a beautiful baby, which I didn't know what to do with because I didn't have an instruction manual. So yeah, it was difficult, but also filled with a lot of joy.
It's funny, one big realization for me. So my best friend, who we were best friends from growing up at school, and she's back at home in the UK, and when she got pregnant, and kind of you go through the we're so happy for you, congratulations, you're buying the little outfits, and it gets around to the time, and she gave birth, and she was obviously back in the UK, but I was like on WhatsApp all the time, and she called me. She doesn't always call me, she usually WhatsApps. She was in tears, and she just broke down and said, why didn't you tell me this was so hard? And it's funny, isn't it? Because even though I found it so hard, I didn't you know, when someone's pregnant, you don't want to just be like packaging all the nitty gritty that goes along with it. But I think there's a little bit of, you know, like you said, through having mum friends and sharing those stories and information, you start to understand, you know, your expectations start to become more sort of realistic, I suppose, with what's kind of happening around you. So I think having that mum support is so important for our mental health, and supporting other mums that we don't necessarily know, you know, that aren't in our friendship group. You know, if you see a mum sort of struggling in a car park with a pushchair, or, you know, even on social media, there's I think a lot since the lockdown, a lot of people sort of sharing things in Facebook groups, and whether we've just got a little bit more in our time. I've seen maybe a little bit more of an increase of people maybe just being a little bit shorter with some of their replies. Like, we're all in this together, and I think it's really important that we you know, we do all we can to support one another, because even once we're past the baby stage and we've now got children that are at school, and the pressures that come along with trying to, you know, understand how to navigate this world, and, you know, help children kind of navigate the schooling and friendships, and, you know, most of being expats and that kind of where they belong, and it is a real minefield for sure. So Tess, like, what can we do to be, you know, proactive about our mental well-being in this space? So World Mental Health Day is one day in every year, but what can we do for 365 days a year to really support ourselves and make sure that we're in the best place to be the best possible mother?
Okay, so what I will say, the number one thing for me and for everybody that I coach, is stop comparing yourself to everybody else. Everybody has a story to tell. Everyone has their own narrative. We are gifted with a blueprint from our parents or primary caregivers, and that's what we use as a foundation for raising our children. And one blueprint is very different to another, even if you have siblings. So when we stop comparing, that's when we can start living authentically with our children and with ourselves, because it's not trying to live up to someone else's standards or goals. It's your own and what works for you, from your values and your beliefs that you have created together with your partner, husband, or not, just individually. I think that's number one thing. Number two is actually acknowledge when you are feeling low. You know, a lot of people, men and women, we put a brave face on it. It's fine, we must soldier on as parents. But, you know, if we are feeling uncomfortable or sad or feeling overwhelmed, it's really important to feel it and acknowledge it. And when we acknowledge it, then we can deal with it. It may be through support from other friends and family, or it could be from medical support or therapists or coaches or whatever it is, but there is support available. So as long as you stop the judgment from your own self outwardly and say it's fine to feel uncomfortable, and get comfortable with feeling uncomfortable, because this whole journey is uncomfortable, especially when the kids get older and start, you know, talking back at you, which some of my children are beginning to do so. So it's just actually taking that breath and go, it's fine. And also being able to step away. I think that's really important. You know, we have been told from a very young age, you know, when we are feeling enraged or angry, count to 10. Actually, studies have shown it takes 20 minutes for our stress hormones, cortisol, to go back to ambient levels. So when you recognize that you are feeling a redness because of a child or whatever it is within your mum's sphere, take 20 minutes, take a step back, and then revisit. Then things will look clearer and you will be able to see a pathway forward, which is filled with compassion. And that's another thing. Compassion is when we understand our own suffering and suffering in others, right? And if we can show each other a little bit of compassion as mums, you know, you mentioned when, you know, a mother is struggling, that's, for me, go up to them and say, are you okay? Can I help? That is when you exhibit compassion. And those kind words can actually change the whole outlook for that mother for that particular day, because she doesn't feel that she's alone. And I think a lot of people do feel alone, but not alone, because there are lots of people around us. So it's important to reach out. You know, I do this quite often. So when I see a mum who is by herself and the baby's crying, I said, do you want me to kind of hold the baby? Or, yeah, I am a stranger, but you know, some women are really receptive. Please, would you mind? I just really need to pop to the loo, because she's rocking back and forth because she doesn't have anyone. So if you see instances like that, don't be afraid. Show some compassion and show some empathy. You know, I'm a mother of a 12-year-old now, and I can so relate to, you know, the younger moms of younger kids of, you know, the terrible twos and so on and so forth. I've been there, done that, and, you know, I'm a resource. If I can help, I will help, and that's what we can all do. You know, we tend to forget the struggles of the young years when the kids get older, but let's reflect, let's show some empathy to each other, mums and dads, and, you know, we can all work together to help ourselves.
For sure. And I think this is, when we think of mental health, we think of this sort of big, scary, dark place. And, you know, it can be when we're in the sort of, you know, throes of mental illness, like you said, struggling with something like postnatal depression or otherwise. But mental health can also be about kindness and compassion and empathy and caring words and exchanges and friendship and all those things. And those are actually things that we understand, you know, as part of being human. And it's almost like I feel we need like a code word between mums, you know, something that's, you know, like the bat signal, that when we are struggling, we could just sort of simply put up this little sign. And I think it's just so important to, you know, not just on World Mental Health Day, but for every day of the year, to check in with people around you, offer support, you know, and that compassion. I remember one of my friends was so happy when we took round a lasagna when she gave birth. And she was like, she was just like, can't think of any better gift to give a new mother than some food. Literally part cooked, just to put it in the oven and fed the family for like 2 or 3 days. And I think it's just those small things that between, you know, women, mothers, parents, friends, neighbours, we can just find those little moments of joy and those little exchanges in order to be able to support one another. So let's not make it complex. Let's not overthink this. Let's just kind of be there for one another as we can be, share our stories, be compassionate and kind, and hopefully we'll make it through. And, you know, I know we've been through lockdown, homeschooling, not easy. And I said this the other day, that if anybody at this point has said that they came through struggle-free 2020, I wouldn't believe them. I wouldn't trust them. So I think it's just, you know, it's so important now that we just do take some time to check in with ourselves and check in with people around us in order to make sure that we're doing as much as we can.
And I think, you know, smiling at strangers, that really helps as well. Smiling is contagious. If you see a mum who is struggling, just a smile of empathy, that can actually change her narrative. And she may be wanting to talk and so on and so forth. And it's all about recognizing ourselves in each other. You know, we all have facets of mum in all of us. So just kind of extracting that and say, oh, I recognize that, I feel that. Maybe I can talk about this, or maybe I can offer a lending hand, or maybe I can just smile. Whatever method that you use will be appreciated by any mum, new or old.
That's so true, Tess. Like, honestly, if anybody out there is struggling, please do reach out to us at Safe Space and we can direct you as needed. And thank you so much to QiDZ for giving us this platform today to talk a little bit about mental health and about mental well-being for parents. It's such an important message. And please be kind to one another, check in on one another, and just remember, we all have mental health. It's part of being human. Thank you, everybody.
Bye.